name is Tabitha Myers, and I'm the high school principal and superintendent at Waterville. And I'm a lifer, so I was born here. I graduated from high school here. I tell students all the time that when I graduated, I said I was never coming back. I was never going back to that place because graduating from a small school, I think you want to get out and see the world, and you think, man, why would I ever go back there? I then got married and got my first teaching job here and became a teacher, taught here in the high school and junior high for about 15 years. One of the things that I think is true at Waterville is that we have a lot of graduates who come back to teach here. And that's, I think, really true because we feel, growing up in a small school, you see the relationship that teachers have with students and how impactful that is. I think a lot of people who go into education want to have that same relationship. They want to make a difference for kids. We learned about communities in schools prior to COVID, and we knew that at our school, we were seeing a huge concern in terms of families' struggles beyond what we could always support at the level we needed to.
When I entered this space, I met two principals who were hugely passionate about their schools, about their students, about their families, and really trying to find a way to get them to come to school wholly ready to learn. That meant food in their belly and having been able to sleep through the night and have housing that's consistent and stable, mental health services, medical appointments. All of those things were desperate needs for both of those districts. And I think when we entered the space, we entered it with the idea that we could broker those services or bring those services ourselves and support the students so that the school really could focus on those academic things that they needed to focus on, and we could really take care of the families and students, and so that we could blend together really and have this confluence of an opportunity for these students to be hugely successful throughout life. One of the things that people always think about when they think of rural communities is that there are these simple standards that exist and all rural communities really represent each other. But the reality of it is, while they have a lot of commonalities, the 12 miles that separate these two school districts really separate the communities that they live in. So Orondo is a tree fruit community. Many of the families who live there are migrant and 90% Hispanic, 100% free and reduced school district. Some of the challenges that those families bring are families who have just migrated to the community and really trying to find themselves where they belong in that community. The school has a lot of challenges with Spanish-speaking families coming in and really trying to find the space for them to be successful in this academic arena.
When I was a very young kid, I want to say first grade, we had traveled with my family to Mexico with my parents to visit family. And when it was time for us to come back, my parents weren't documented, so for them to get across the border was not easy. I crossed the border with one of my aunts who was a citizen, and we waited for my parents on the other side of the border. At that age, I got the concept of how difficult and how rare it was for my parents to be able to be here. It took them, I want to say 2-3 weeks to actually finally be able to cross the border. And when we finally got back up to Yakima, I remember I was traumatized because being migrant workers, you'd often hear about the immigration raiding, the packing sheds and the fields, which was what my parents did. And now I understood, I physically had seen how difficult it was for them to get here. So that terrified me as a little first grader. And so when they would drop me off at school, I'd bang on the doors in the school just crying. I didn't want my parents to leave because I was afraid that one day they'd be gone. My father actually ended up being deported when I was a junior in high school. And my entire family decided to move to Mexico with my dad because they didn't want to have a split family. But at that very young age, when I received counseling, I vividly remember making a promise to myself that one day when I grew up, I was going to help kids that felt what I was feeling. That feeling of just anger and frustration with the world, not understanding why I had to go through that. If I knew my parents were good, hardworking people, it just didn't make sense to me. So I chose to stay here when my entire family left because I had made that promise, and I knew that there was other kids feeling this, and I wanted to one day be able to help them and alleviate that from the world.
I think of working with the kids, working with these families in this community that is so rural. I come from a very similar background. I grew up in Bridgeport, which is very, very rural. And so just knowing that I can advocate for them, that I can be there for them, help close any kind of gap that they might have to be able to succeed, and just being able to inspire them to do well and to be their best them. So many of our families live in an area isolated away, and they live in seasonal orchard cabins where seasonal workers will come, and their living spaces are very small, limited. Some of these cabins don't even have a kitchen area. It's just one big room. The rooms, there's no privacy. So if you're trying, as we were having to do remote learning and transition with the pandemic into remote learning, it's difficult to imagine how a student can properly find that space of privacy to be able to be ready to learn. I feel very blessed that I have had the opportunity to be able to be welcomed into these communities and by these families, to be able to bring yard school, social emotional learning yard school into their homes. I follow a research-based curriculum, and it's called Strong Kids. I bring it with me, and I have my bag with my curriculum, with all my tools. I bring toys with me, games that are a variety of games because different kids like different things. And I go out to these homes and I work with students. I have them come outside. During our warmer weather, it was very much like a picnic style learning outside, lay out a blanket, we all sit there and engaged, learn, and it is very fun. I am able to teach and help students learn new coping skills, learn skills that'll help them during stressful times.
So Adriana, I would say, is currently the student that I'm working with very, very hard. He is also of a migrant background whose parents also live in Mexico. So he's a very, very similar situation to myself. So I see myself a lot in him. So I find myself a lot of the time being super passionate about supporting him because really I see a lot of commonality in ourselves. He's an English language learner, so he's currently still focusing on learning his English. So I feel like in a rural community that's primarily white, there's a 20% Latino population up here, and staff just isn't quite representative of those 20% students. So coming into this role at Waterville High School, I've been able to be someone for him, especially as an English learner, to be able to really connect and see himself in me. And I feel like it's also been motivating for him as much as it's been motivating for me.
Pues la diferencia es de que cuando llegué aquí no sabía qué hacer, no entendía mucho inglés, no sabía qué tenía que decir o si alguien me iba a poder ayudar, porque en la anterior escuela no había personas que hablaran español y era un poco más difícil. Y pues tenía miedo porque decían que aquí era una escuela más chica, entonces no sabía qué hacer realmente. Entonces llegué, no hablaban español más que 2 personas y era difícil poder entender y poder obtener ayuda de ellas. Cuando llegó Edgar, pues fue muy bueno porque habla español y me pudo ayudar en bastantes cosas, como en las aplicaciones a la universidad, y también me dio comida y me ayudó en varias cosas. La verdad fue muy bueno que él haya venido a esta escuela. Y era como que no sabía qué hacer, no sabía a quién pedirle ayuda, tampoco tenía dinero para pagar a alguien que me ayudara. Entonces era como que no tengo quien me ayude, pero pues tengo a Edgar ahora. Y era como que siempre que tenía algún problema, alguna dificultad, ir con Edgar porque él me puede ayudar. Y pues me entiende también, porque habla mi idioma. Entonces es como que es una ayuda grande, ¿sabes? Como que si no estuviera él, realmente no hubiera hecho nada. Realmente yo creo que ya me hubiera regresado a México o no sé dónde. No sé qué hubiera hecho, la verdad. Edgar y Community Schools, porque pues la verdad me han ayudado bastante, ¿verdad? En cuanto a en darme comida, en ayudarme a llenar las aplicaciones para las universidades como BYU, en otras universidades y colegios, y a llenar pues mi aplicación para las apoyo de las universidades. Me ayudaste a pensar en mi futuro, en mis universidades, cómo me iba a sentir yo, qué necesitaba hacer y qué es lo que realmente quiero en mi futuro, qué realmente yo quiero hacer en mi futuro. Pues mis planes a futuro es estudiar en la universidad y pues estudiar la carrera de Relaciones Internacionales. Me gusta mucho la idea de aprender otras culturas y poder ayudar a las empresas o donde yo trabaje a futuro, a entender más de otra cultura. Me gustan los negocios. Pues yo estoy muy agradecido con Community Schools porque me ha ayudado bastante y también estoy agradecido con las personas que dan donaciones y brindan sus esfuerzos a la Community Schools porque ayudan a bastante jóvenes como yo que venimos y no entendemos nada.
What I have quickly found about communities and schools is that the model works. I've seen it with my own eyes. And really, we're not just helping students succeed in school and graduate school. We're also helping them succeed in life.